Hello and welcome to daily chapter reading of A Life Set Free, a true story about the love and faithfulness of God by Rena Groot, chapter India. Most assuredly, I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also, and greater works than these he will do, because I go to my Father. John 14:12. This is really John's story, but I had a starring role in making it happen, so I have to tell you about it. John and I lived in a little guest barn in Dr. Larry and Lorraine Belisky's backyard in Chilliwack, BC. We saved up $3,000 and were hoping to use it as a down payment for our first house. So one Friday afternoon, we visited a builder to find out how much it would cost to have a house built. John had a hockey game with a church league that night, so we did not have time to go home for supper. We decided to stop by a restaurant. As we walked by the restaurant window, some friends who were seated inside started frantically waving at us to join them. Harold Hansen excitedly told us he was going to India in 1 week to help an evangelist with crusades. He turned to John and said, "Why don't you come with us?" John laughed, but for some reason that question grabbed me and wouldn't let go. As we drove to the hockey arena that evening, I told John I thought he should go to India. He protested and said he had not heard from God and we did not have enough money anyway. Harold said John needed $4,000 to go. We only had $3,000. After the hockey game, as we walked in the door, the phone started ringing. John's dad was on his way back from Holland and had stopped to visit his daughter Evelyn in Edmonton. Evelyn had told him we were hoping to build a house. Now, before I tell you about this call, you can appreciate how amazing this is. John's dad did not want us to go to YWAM the year before. He wondered why we couldn't be normal, just buy a house, settle down, and start a family. John's parents thought we were crazy. So when John answered the phone and his dad said, "I hear you are buying a house," John expected his dad to be excited by the news. He was totally unprepared for his dad's reply. He said, "Don't do it. God has work for you." John said, the Sunday at church, Harold came up to John and asked what he had decided. John said, "I'm going." Harold replied, "Good, we've already booked your tickets." The next morning, the team drove a few hours to the Indian consulate in Vancouver to get visas. We were still short $1,000. Harold's wife, Joan, called at morning recess at High Road Academy, the school where I taught, to tell me someone had given her a check for John for $1,500. If John had decided not to go, she was instructed to rip up the check and never tell us about it. While in India, John led worship one evening at a mass crusade. People lined up afterwards to see the evangelist for prayer. John was standing apart from the crowd. He said a small boy on crutches came hobbling towards him. The translator said the boy wanted John to pray for him. John was actually quite a skeptic about modern-day miracles. John's feet were upside down and kind of backwards. John tried to redirect the boy towards the evangelist and the healing line. The interpreter insisted the boy wanted John to pray for him. The boy refused to leave. John told me later he had no faith for a miracle. He prayed something like, "God, you see this boy's faith? Please heal him." While he prayed, John was shocked to see the boy's feet turn. The new tops of his feet were now covered with calluses. John said the boy gingerly took a few steps, then dropped his crutches and joyfully ran. Somewhere there's a picture of John with tears streaming down his face, standing beside a crutchless boy. I wonder what became of the boy. I am sure he will never forget what God did for him.